Good morning, everyone. Lee Henson, President and Founder of AgileDad here, and it's time for today's edition of Daily Stand-Up. Without any further ado, let's get started. One of the topics that often comes up to us is regarding scaling, and how do we know when it's time to scale? And the one warning that I want to point out right away is, in my opinion, organizations are trying to scale too quickly. I feel like they're jumping straight into SAFe or less or disciplined agile delivery or Scrum at scale, and they aren't taking into consideration that they're not doing things the best they can fundamentally before they get to the point where they're trying to scale. So in other words, if you're building a bunch of crap and you decide to scale, what that indicates to me is that you'll have a bigger pile of crap or more things delivered that people don't care about. So how do we know when it's time to scale? How do we know when it's time for us to dig in and address those things? And does scaling always hurt, or is scaling always helpful, or how do we get control and figure out what we're trying to do? Well, one of the things that we've discovered as we went in and did coaching at many large organizations is the number one guilty plea is that organizations try to scale too early, or try to scale without an understanding of what they're getting themselves into. The organizations just don't have their head around the basics of what they're trying to do, so they figure if they scale, they can get things to market more quickly. And I think the logic behind this, from a leadership perspective, actually makes sense. They say, if I can scale and get 100 ideas out there, that increases the chances that one of my ideas will be the next, the next big thing, the next opportunity, the next multi-trillion-dollar deal. Everybody's looking for the next Amazon or the next eBay or the next Walmart or the next iPhone. And what we discover is that, throwing more ideas at the wall to see what sticks isn't always the right solution. While it does diversify your portfolio and allow you to have a better understanding of the things and capabilities that your organization can deliver, it also drives your value down in a way, because too much diversification, people are trying to figure out, what exactly do you do? Who exactly are you? Why are you relevant? And what exactly are you trying to achieve? And I think that draws the second concern. The second concern is that many of these scaled frameworks claim to have you covered from end to end. Now, while I don't deny that there are a couple out there that really do have good coverage through all four phases of product development or project development, I think that many of them draw their focus to be too rigid and prescriptive, that you must do A, must do B, must do C. And I get where they're coming from too. So, for example, if I chose SAFe, they have a lot of, so SAFe is Scaled Agile Framework. Once again, not good, not bad, just one of the scaling methods. They have heavy emphasis on making sure you understand the 3 levels of portfolio, program, and team, and how do you create a portfolio backlog, and weighted shortest job first, and architectural runways, and strategic theming, and art budgets, agile release train budgets, and safe patterns, and program planning, and program increment. It's just, there's so many things here that are incredibly rigid, and what they advise you is that if you miss any one of these, or if that you're not doing these things to the best of your ability, that you're going to miss out on one of the key elements or the key benefits that SAFe provides. And I get it. What they're trying to do is make sure that you focus in each of the phases by implementing and making certain that certain things are mandatory, so that they can make sure you hit each one of the 4 phases. And while this is good because it's driving you to create that focus and understanding, I would argue that it could also be cumbersome or bad, because who wants to be entirely prescriptive when you don't need to be? In other words, there are certain steps organizations take based on the type of product or service that you build that should be used, and other steps that could be eliminated to help you be more lean and to help you be more have greater business agility to get your product or service to market. There are times where maybe you're dealing with a compliance-related product, or dealing with something that's very rigid and has need to be that rigid, where each of these checkpoints and each of these things are absolutely warranted, needed, and make sense. But what we find in most organizations is they don't have the core mechanisms in place for how they're going to deliver their product, yet they're trying to drive the entire organization to scale bad behavior. So I think the key here when it comes to best understanding the whole scaling mentality is, what exactly are we trying to scale? Are we trying to scale our one product and make our product more scalable to an audience? Or are we trying to scale our product offering and have additional products available to, or services available to, our target consumers? Are we trying to scale our process so that we can have our process more cleanly initiated and dealt with across the entire organization? Or are we trying to scale everything all together at once and do an enterprise level scale where we're just trying to build more products and services because what we have is running so well and we're trying to use this to optimize where we are? And I think that while most organizations look at the end goal of, let's scale everything good and get rid of everything bad, which sounds amazing on the surface, it's not always easy to do that. And that's the reason why there's so many different competing scaled frameworks. And I'm not saying that all of them are poor. And in fact, I'll even go on record and say this. I think that each one of the scaling frameworks, whether it's Nexus or Disciplined Agile Delivery or SAFe or LESS or Scrum at Scale, you name it, they each have things of value that they provide. But I would argue that from my assessment, they each also have waste as well. And in most organizations, while one could be overkill, another may be a good fit. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, in an effort to try to make Agile red pill, blue pill, or one size fits all, many of these scaled frameworks have driven us to rigidity that causes us to lose the very value of Agile, which is being nimble and being able to pivot and make adjustments and change things. And while they each promote that, they give you the ability to do these things, when you read each of the steps that are encompassed in doing or exercising each of these scaling methods, what you'll quickly discover is they're providing great information, but also providing an opportunity for waste. So I think it's important for us to get a good understanding. And I guess the key here that I want to drive home, the big message here with regard to scaling is, 1, don't scale too early. Make sure that if you even intend to scale, that you have a good understanding of what you're trying to scale and why. 2, do not ever scale without proper training or coaching. And, I'm sure all the benefactors of each of these different scale frameworks are going to be happy to hear me say this, but trying to scale on your own without some guidance is definitely going to lead you down a path of destruction. It's going to lead you to a path where you have incredible waste. And third and finally, make certain you understand fundamentally what you're trying to do with regard to a product or service before you try to scale and make things better. And I think the keys to doing that are to make sure you're trying to eliminate waste, make sure you're swarming to limited work in progress, and make sure you maintain a reasonable team size so that teams can feel confident in their ability to build things end to end and become T-shaped and cross-functional, which is exactly what Agile is trying to promote. And I think that there are implicit or inherent things just in Agile by itself that aren't part of scaling that will help you get to a point where scaling feels most natural. And if we follow that message and we follow that recipe, where we focus on improving the quality of the things that we're not doing so well, maximizing and continuing to do the things that we're doing well, and leaning in to discover which steps in each of the scaled frameworks we can do that are going to help us become better at what we do, I think that that's the recipe for really getting business value and really driving content and quality of content. And scaling comes naturally. So while each of these contain great ideas, my advice would be to make scaling organic. Don't try to pick one of these and squeeze yourself into it. What we quickly discovered is when organizations try to map to a process just for the sake of doing the process, that the organic delivery of what you're trying to build and the organic and systemic things inside of the organization to help them be successful go away. So I just think it's important for us to really understand and dig in before we do this And this is one of the rare times where you hear me say, whether it's organic scaling that you're trying to achieve or scaling using one of these methods, it's incredibly important, if not mandatory, for you to have help doing it. Don't try to do it all on your own. You'll quickly discover that it's not as easy a solution as it's made out to be. So I hope you found this information useful. As always, we encourage you to visit AgileDad.com, where you can find out more about this and many other topics. And of course, we want to hear from you at learnmore@AgileDad.com, where you can tell us what you want to learn about and tell us what you want to hear, and we'd love to address those topics and concerns for you. So as always, we encourage you to stay happy, stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, take care.